On you. All right. Now, this is a seat. The seat of Richmond is one that the Labor Party has held for a little while. It's one that, because of some redistribution, the Greens they think they've got a shot at it because, particularly down now, unsurprisingly, around the Ballina part of the world, you know, basically follow the smoke down to that part of the world, and that is a state Green seat, so they think they're a shot in all of this. In between all of that is the Nationals, who believe there's a very strong Conservative vote in the area, and the current president of the party is Larry Anthony, and he's the former member in this part of the world. The man who would like to join him as the next Nationals MP for this part of the world is Matthew Fraser. Matthew, good evening to you.
G'day,
How are you, mate? Hello. Now, what's funny about this is that this is a debate of one. Because the plan, of course, was that we were going to have you here and the current MP. The MP literally told us, I've got better things to do, and I'll own it, I didn't invite the Greens. I have no interest in hearing what they've got to say. I want to focus on what the major parties can achieve for the electorate. But, I mean, what does it say? I mean, I know it's the easiest of all free kicks, but what does it say if the current MP can't be bothered coming to this event? I mean, last time I checked, there's no other national TV shows that are doing anything in the Tweed tonight.
No, you're right, Paul, and I think really it's actions speak louder than words. And I think it shows a lot of arrogance, particularly from someone who's really been in now for 12 years, who's demonstrated really, I guess, discontent for the people here by not showing up tonight.
Now, how do you deal with, this is, again, a very diverse electorate down at Byron Bay, Ballina, all sorts of places, obviously here and all the way in. How do you find, are there pockets of the electorate that are no-goes for a national candidate?
Well, during my campaign, I go everywhere. Byron Bay in particular is what you're referring to. Of course, there's a very strong Green hold down there. But one of the new parts of the electorate is Ballina. Ballina is absolutely a beautiful place and a welcome addition into the electorate. But I get around everywhere. And one of the things I really try to do the most is get along with everybody. So even although we've got a lot of Greens, we've got a lot of Labor, it's my job to get along with everyone, so if I get elected, I can deliver the best outcomes.
So, OK, what's something that has long suffered because the Labor Party's here? What's an example of something that you can actually deliver and people 3 years from now will be able to point at that and go, that's because we elected him? Sure.
Well, at the moment, we're talking about a rail trail. Now, that runs from Murwillumbah to Casino. At the moment, the Tweed Shire Council's put up a proposal to run it from Murwillumbah to Crabs Creek. This rail trail will put this region on the map because it's really capitalising on our eco-tourism. Now, Paul, we don't have a big industry here of mining, or we don't rely on big industry as far as car manufacturers. But if we can capitalise on our tourism sector at the same time by protecting our environment and making it sustainable, we'll do well. OK, just on the planning question too, areas like this, a little different than the Sunshine Coast, but when we were on the sunny coast, there was an almighty fight about whether or not a Bunnings was going to be approved. Huge pitch battles of people saying it was the wrong track of land. What's your view on development in an area like this? Well, it's got to be sustainable development. And if you just go 20 metres to the North Pole, as you know, there's the Queensland border and, of course, the Gold Coast. And I can tell you, we don't want to look like the Gold Coast. They've got Dreamworld, SeaWorld and Movie World, and we want to have down here the real world. No, fair. Do you want to say the real world or Dream World? Yeah, I thought so. All right, that's enough from me. Let's get some questions from locals who've got a lot to say. Hello, mate. Step on forward. What's your name? How are you?
I'm John Lee.
Hello, John. Now, we had a chance to chat before. You run a local charity that deals with some pretty profound things in and around homelessness. What's your question for somebody who wants to be your next local MP?
Yes, well, we've had a few little chats before.
G'day, John.
Matthew, probably the biggest thing that I'm seeing and I'm hearing a lot about is the Tweed has pretty well the highest homeless rate per capita in New South Wales. We've got women and children sleeping in cars. There is no accommodation. 20 years people are waiting for accommodation. There is absolutely no support coming from any of the parties. And I guess I've asked a number of the three major parties what in their plans for the next 5 years or whatever, what do you have for homelessness or domestic violence? And nobody seems to answer.
Let's focus on this. Homelessness, what are you doing in this area where there will be people that not too far from this club will sleep rough tonight? Yeah, sure. Well, before I answer that, I just want to congratulate John and his team for all the work that he does in this local region. He does do a fantastic job. You know,
Homelessness, Paul, though, is not an easy one. I know the federal government and the state government have put up a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, to try and tackle this issue. But what I try and do, though, is actually advocate on a personal level. So I participate in the Homeless Sleep App, for example, which we did last year. That was put on by St Vincent de Paul. I communicate with a lot of industry leaders and not-for-profit organisations to try and bring them together. And I was just talking to someone just recently who's a pastor here who wants to put together some sort of a housing development, a low-cost housing development, but she needs someone to step in and bat for her. So I've spoken to her, and it's about connecting people. Now, that's difficult now as a candidate, but if I was a local member, it'd be a lot easier, and I would certainly be happy to advocate for John and his cause. Talking about domestic violence, though, John, it's about $200 million has been put up recently, but of that's only about $5 million towards crisis housing, and I think that needs to be a lot better.
Because that's the big issue here too. I mean, the amount of shelters that have closed down, the rest. If people want to read more about this, what can they do? What's the website, Facebook page? What do you got?
Yep, it's You Have a Friend, W's all before that, youhaveafriend.com.au.
All right, and your beautiful wife over there as well, who's always a big fan of the show too. Thank you very much, mate, and good on you for what you're doing. All right, Tommy, we'll take an extra couple of minutes here because I want to get to some local questions. Let's go for it. What's your name?
Aaron.
G'day, Aaron. What do you want to ask?
As a young person in this electorate, how are you going to improve jobs and growth in this region, in particular the youth?
Right.
Did you want me to talk about jobs and growth?
No, jobs and growth. Why did you mention jobs and growth? They hide behind... Anyway...
Youth jobs.
Youth jobs, youth unemployment. This is the
sure.
thing. It doesn't matter if it's Mount Isa, if it's country Victoria, it doesn't matter if we're in South Australia. Everyone wants to know. What are you going to do?
Yeah, well, Paul, first of all, I mean, I started mowing lawns when I was 10 years old. I had a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, I guess, and by the time I was in my teens and early 20s, I was into my own small business. So at the moment, I've now been in business for over 20 years, hire hundreds of local people, giving many people their very first job. So I understand the issue of employment, but I think on yours specifically for this region, I touched on the rail trail, but I'd also like to see this region as just one thing, the adventure sports capital. And that's about BMX, skateboarding, surfing, mountain biking, putting on events, bringing more people to the region, and of course more money. Now, if I just talk about Bathurst as an example, they just built a BMX track down there, $1 million to $2 million. Over one weekend when they had a Nationals titles, over 10,000 people came to town, and they spent over $13 million. That's one BMX event in one weekend. So that's something there. And the other thing I'll just touch on too is Ballina. We've just released a $3 million investment for an industrial hub down there. Now that alone is going to create 500 jobs in Ballina. That's huge for Ballina.
Well, I've got to ask, you got a job currently?
Yes.
All right. What's the better job that you want? What do you want to do with your life?
Working a bit like Mr Fraser himself in politics.
Okay, you want to run for politics?
Oh.
All right, do you want my job first? All right, good luck to you. Give it up, mate. I love when young people do the show. Thank you. All right, let's get another question going here. All right, last of the locals. Sir, by the way, can we just look at this snappy dressing? This is just magnificent. I love a man with a bit of style, baby.
I got an outfit for every day of the week. This is it.
All right. All right, well, all right, sir. All right, what's the question you want to ask?
I'd hoped to actually ask this question of Justine Elliott.
Who's the local
since
Labor
she
MP?
Decided not to come, but I am interested in Matthew's reaction to this. All members of Parliament get a large amount of money for community information, and what has been happening, at least here, is that ads like this,
Okay.
which really should not be paid for, in my view, out of funds that are really for community information,
Okay.
are being misused. I want to know from Matthew what he would do were he to get into Parliament. Would he use community information money for ads to attack the opposition?
So, okay, is this taxpayer? I mean, this ad. I don't know. Can I have a look at it?
Taxpayer funded.
That's a tax. That's not a Labor Party ad, not a union ad.
No, this was actually from earlier in the year before the election was called.
Okay, fair enough. All right, what are you going to do?
Well, Paul, I'm pretty familiar with the attack ads put out by a local Labor MP. I mean, after 12 years, all she's really got now as a policy is to use taxpayers' money to fund negative advertising in not just newspapers, but probably letterboxes as well. It is simply outrageous. I think it lacks honesty, lacks integrity, and certainly lacks accountability. I mean, the whole point of the communications allowance or entitlement from the taxpayer is to put out things like notices for Anzac Days, or if a new drug comes on the PBS. That's the point of it. If the local Rotary Club came to me and said, can you print off some newsletters? That's the point of it. And certainly, if I'm elected, I will completely ban that practice for myself, of course, but it's really about the community.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it, and very snappy dressing. Well done. Where can people find you on the ballot if they want to vote for you next Saturday?
I'm down the very bottom, so it's easy. Just go one and go up from there.
All right, go on. Thank you very much, Matthew. Appreciate it, mate. All the best. Good luck with it.